Good morning. Good morning, world. Happy Friday. Okay. All right, so this is interesting. Getting to a place where we can see some progress. I take a second to look at this. Oop. If I can. Just look. Yeah, okay, I can drag it around like this. We've introduced the fire. Something I want to try and do this morning. Okay, I want to finish. See how we started adding highlights over here. But we need to make it same deal over there. Just a few. Nothing crazy. I think I want to make the fire bigger, and I'll do that just by scaling it up. Don't have to redraw anything majorly. Yeah. When you come back and look at something the next day and you're not filled with all this angst and regret of everything that looks terrible, probably did a decent job. What's left to do? Well, we need to integrate the flame from this fire not just into the background, but into the foreground where it applies as well. Now, Link here is in the foreground, and these legs are in the foreground. But in order to have a separation of the light, I don't really want to integrate too much of that light into Link. Maybe a little bit draping over some of these legs. But the whole point is that Link is in the shadow. And so we're not going to really mess with getting all this golden rim light all around Link. I think that would make it look too much like they are occupying too much of the same Z space. I really want to make it feel like the light from the fire is illuminating the enemy's head and not Link. Illuminating the head of his body, the bad guy's body, but not the back of his body where Link is. And that'll have a really good way of separating them. Eventually, I'll also add a little bit of atmospheric perspective, and by that I just mean like smoke or mist, haze. That will sort of help separate them as well. We're going to try a little bit today. I'm not an expert at this, but there's this thing called subsurface scattering that they talk about in 3D, which will apply here, or at least I'll try to make it so. Where, if you ever hold up your thumb to a flashlight and you can sort of make it glow, that's the effect of subsurface scattering. Similarly, if you hold up a if you hold up a grape to the light, or like the sun, that'll light up, depending on your photography skills. And there may be a bit of a scaling fudge when it comes to this guy, but I want to make it feel like he has a materiality that reacts somewhat to subsurface scattering. I feel like if you held up like a shrimp tail to the sun, that would light up a little bit too, right? And this guy's basically like a big old crab. Or like, if you saw an insect, crawling on a branch, crossing the sun, it would light up, right? So something with an exoskeleton body can still react with subsurface scattering. Even if we don't get that much subsurface scattering, I want to make it feel like there's some rim light on the bad guy. We need a highlight for the fire and all that stuff. So that's what we'll concentrate on now. Oh, and eventually you know, this sand dune needs to be rim lit. We need to get some of the modeling of that orange glow in these ripples. But overall, liking the progress. So let's do it. Oh, these smaller files just open so easily. Ah, damn it! Where's my stylus? Okay, I'll be right back. Sorry for that interruption. Okay, let's see here. I wonder if it makes sense to just make the fire biggest first. Fire bigger first. Let's try that. Yeah, I think making it bigger is okay. Within reason. We can always scale it down again. Something like that feels pretty decent. Yeah, I like that, okay. Try that for now. I wonder. I might have to start a new layer because it may be that the fire effects feel like they need to go over the black lines, the outlines that I've been drawing. It's kind of tricky. Let's see here. Adding a bunch of light and then even more light. I mean, even sort of agnostic to any subsurface scattering effects, I feel like this is a good call. This little impression of rim light. The texture at the surface of this bug monster is reacting to the brightness of the fire. It's reflecting it nicely. One interesting thing about the color picking method that I've been using, one of the reasons I feel like it works for me is because it never seems to automatically look like I went overboard, like it never looks like it's too saturated for the task. It always feels like, okay, is that bright enough? Is it dark enough? It never pushes it in a way where it feels like I'll be running up against a wall. I don't know if, frankly, I don't even know if anybody's listening, but I used to run into a problem where I'd be coloring things and then I'd be like, okay, I'd be doing my best but I'd run into issues where I'd be like, okay, well, if that is red and this needs to be even redder than that, you know, I'll pick an even more saturated red. But then I go to do that, and then the red, it turns out I was already at the most saturated red. Like somehow in the way that I had been picking my colors and applying them, I would run out of color. They would be like, okay, well, you've reached the end of the red rainbow. You know, sorry, it doesn't get any redder than what you already did. And I'd be like, well, but what? It's not red enough yet. Even it needs to be redder. Maybe that's not a great example, but you know, I might like. Here's a better example. Paint a beautiful blue sky. I'm like, okay, beautiful blue. Then I'm going like, okay, I'm going to paint beautiful blue water. It's got to be a little bit more blue than the sky. So I do that. And then the water was bluer than the blue sky, and it was blue, and it was great. And then I'd be like, now I'm going to draw this girl with blue hair in the water, and she's going to have the even more beautiful, even more blue hair. And I'd go to do that, and I'd run out. There would be no more blue left. I couldn't do any bluer than the blue I had in the water, and I couldn't do any bluer than that because I'd already used all the previous blues on the sky. And so I would run into this issue where I'd be like, okay, well, I need this to have the contrast of being even bluer, and yet I couldn't. I'd just run out of blue. I don't know if that makes sense, but had been an issue for me, and it's because ultimately I was going too saturated to start out with on those color choices. When I do things this way, there's always a lot held in reserve, and then what we can do later is really crank where crank it in terms of like saturation, just using the Photoshop sliders. Let's see. Hopefully I'm not talking like this is crazy. Like, so if I look at this, like this looks crazy red to me. There's like so much, you'd just think we'd be running out of red. Like how much redder could it be? But if I color pick here, there's all this red saturation still left to go. It's insane. It's like, it could be, despite how colorful it is, it's actually overall, it's like a really neutral-ish. I mean, you know, let's see, like, is anything here like past the midway point? So I used to color like over here. Like I'd go here for my color picking all the time. And it was like death. I couldn't help myself. Wait, there, yeah. Okay, and this is a common enough thing where I've even had teachers caution me against this. You get oversaturated in your yellows, and it looks super artificial. Interesting. I guess I'll have to watch out for that. But if that's the only spot, then we're in good shape. And I don't think people notice. I mean, I certainly don't flag that personally as a problem. But he was a traditional painter, and that was something he noticed, which is, yeah, that's interesting. I guess he was saying essentially that color, like the way the yellow light works, it's a little bit unnatural for it to be that saturated. Why that would be, though, I'm not sure. And maybe he was talking about in things that aren't light sources, whereas this is a light source, so I wonder if we can get away with it. Okay, but here, you would probably have something to say about it. Way too saturated right here. Yeah, look how saturated that is. Throw a flag on that later. wonder if that's jumping out to anybody else. It really isn't like distracting me too much. Like my eye right now is going where I want it to. But we can definitely do something about that. And I think typically we would just there's just probably too many layer effects. But my friend put it was brights like yellows, reds are like air, and blues are much heavier colors, denser. I think that's normal. Hey, good morning. If I erase out some of those things, will my teacher give me a passing grade? Since you were listening, the teacher in question I can never resist a healthy name drop to Nathan Fowkes, who is pretty much the only art educator I'll enthusiastically endorse. I'm not sure if you've heard of this guy. He's definitely known in the concept art and educational circles, but this guy knows his shit. And I'm like I was a Nathan Fowkes fan before. Way before. I knew Nathan from real life when he and I were students at the same school. It was just a, he's probably like 15 years older than me or something like that, but he is, he was on sabbatical from working at DreamWorks, and I was just starting out with like taking my art education to the next level. So I was like 21 and he was probably 35 at the time or something. But we were in the same classes together at this fun art school in my area. So now he, of course, is like a famous teacher, but yeah. James Gurney is someone else who I had obviously had like Dinotopia books growing up. James Gurney is great. Nathan is better in my opinion. However, James Gurney is probably it depends on what you mean by better, but like I believe if you only had to pick two artists to draw sources from, and that includes me, I would probably be both of those guys. James Gurney's art is obviously he's really, really good and he knows a lot. I just feel like his composition, his brushstrokes, I can never tell what the focal point is in his art. It just feels like they all feel like they are like historical or they don't feel like educational drawings. I don't get the emotional reaction I do from Nathan's work, where I don't know, just crazy. Liam, thank you for checking in on the progress. Yes, I'm not ready to receive any high praise just yet, because there's still plenty of time to screw things up. But yes, a little bit of I'm glad I braved my fears and went ahead and sort of tried to relearn on the fly how I used to do this stuff. And actually, this is a far more intensive application of the process I had been espousing. I was sort of in the middle of explaining to Scroll Reaper that I am running into things where I'm like, I'm not sure if I know how to draw that or paint that or that effect. And so while I definitely do like the progress it's been making, we could run into issues where I'm like, damn, I don't know what I'm doing, and it's all screwed up now. So we'll see. But anyway, thanks for joining. Okay. Getting back to... Oh. And Liam, just in case you joined 2 seconds too late, if anybody wanted to know what class I thought was the most worth the money that I'd ever paid for, it's Nathan Fowkes' composition class. This is available on Schoolism. It's expensive, I think, if you do the like the full thing where he's like giving you constructive feedback like on your stuff or whatever. It is expensive. However, the like pictorial composition absolutely was worth 100,000 times the price. This is like $1 million information. Like, if you can actually, I believe Nathan is like a great artistic educator of our time. I've definitely taken a lot of. I didn't actually formally go to what you would call like an accredited university of art or anything like that. All I've ever done is really just workshops. But living in Los Angeles like I do, where it's like an industry hub, really experienced people do offer classes and they teach. And Nathan is one of them. He worked forever at DreamWorks. He's a freelancer now. His work ethic is second to none. Like, this guy does not mess around with like taking things seriously, but also not being a hard ass or an asshole about it. Like, this guy, he is so God, I don't know. He's like the I don't know. This will be the wrong analogy, but he just feels like the Tom Hanks of art, instead of like the Tim Allen of art, where you could probably find a bunch of questionable things that you wouldn't want to endorse. You know, who's a person that's uncancelable? Is like, Nathan is an amazing guy, and I've met him, and you know, I'm a big fan of him. But how and the reason he explains why composition is important is it's totally worth it if you can spend money on anything. Like, what did I think, Max? What did you spend money on that absolutely took you to the next level? And it was his composition course. Absolutely. So think about it. Think about it. Okay. All right. So that's sort of like a starter there. Let's pick the color here. So this is our original red color right here for the Lanmola shell. You can see that the legs and the body are different colors, and I just did that so there would be some contrast. But the original red color. So if nothing else, I just try to keep these relationships the same so that these small dots, their shape is more or less preserved when I move it over to the higher spectrum. And that was not scientific calculation. That was a guess based on how things were appearing relative. So this is the brighter version of that color. It's still very desaturated. You can see here it's like, you know, slightly colorful kind of gray. Something about the lighting makes the creature so dynamic. Yeah, it's the... What I've noticed of this coloring technique is that it just ends up being so extremely... I mean, if you have a good base piece of... like if your subject doesn't look lame, like your line art or whatever, then almost any lighting that you apply to it can look good. Can look good if it's like applied in a way that is, you know, treated somewhat realistically. I'm still at a loss with exactly why this works, because I am a bit like, I'm kind of like a color newbie. Like I don't make compositions like rendered compositions in my workday. I do black and white scribbles, you know? So a lot of this is out of my wheelhouse, but knowing that almost like I apply this technique to almost everything and anything that needs color, and it always seems to work. Okay, so that's the lighter version of the red, but now we need the lighter and more red influenced, or the more yellow influenced, and that is about the same distance with red, and then half the distance in the green. And that should get us the color that we need here. And it looks like it's kind of the same color, but it isn't, and it should be a little bit more appropriate. Makes me wonder, actually, what is the... So that's that. And this is that. It's very similar. Okay, well. Don't need to question it. But the approach here is like, I mentally am thinking about it a lot more like, now I'm not ironically, like I'm not a photographer, but I really am trying to think about this as like, what if it is real? What if you, thank you for saying that, Liam. Liam says, just wow, I'm sure you will be a part in Nintendo. I will have no... it would be a cool thing on my bucket list. If that happens, I may end up hating it. You know, despite the fact that I am a professional, I'm not immune to like getting extremely bored and frustrated with work. And yeah, so be careful what you wish for, I guess. But it would be fun. Like, even if all I got from Nintendo was a cease and desist letter, like, I'd be so proud. I would hang that like right there. So we'll see. Okay, yeah, but you can see that, like, really, and so, like, really trying to think about it, like, we're not just adding light and color to where, like, what looks good, what we know could look good based on, you know, images we've seen on the internet. It's really thinking about, like, you know, the light source is here, so I'm not gonna color it with anything that looks like a bright, you know, orangey source on the back of it, because there's no light coming from that direction. I'm not sure light can reach into these crevices. Maybe it can, but I don't think it needs to. It's almost like being sparing is the less is. It's a little bit less is more. Something like that. For now, that might be all that is quite needed. Oh, maybe. Seems like I did forget to have some of this happening. Yeah, that's cool. Anyway, I really appreciate the support. It's not like it's been my oh, it's pointing in the other direction. Hang on. There we go. I want to make sure I get my overlaps in the right order here. My Instagram account for this is not blowing up, but the feedback I get like is really awesome, where people are like, I don't know what to say other than these are the coolest Zelda drawings I've ever seen, you know. And I'm like, that is awesome to hear, because I don't want bots or like fake people have anything to do with what I'm putting out there. This is personal, you know. Some of that shape is not. Okay, let's do something. The pupil. The color of this light I believe we can justify having it. There needs to be some sort of something that feels like it's accurate to the fire. Okay. These mandibles definitely need to be reflecting light. Same deal. Does it look better without that? Maybe I even fudge it a little bit like that, yeah. Huh. Kind of works. Much brighter. Plus yellow. That might be a little much. Knock that back. I don't like the split highlight very much. Let's see here. I'm either going to cheat it one way or the other. I think I prefer it this way. Join me as I struggle with highlights. Something about that feels too much. Maybe it was better before. Let's go back to that for now. Maybe just in the wrong spot. No. That's what I get for jumping ahead. Nathan would know. Nathan, where should I put this highlight? I invoke your name. Let the art spirit enter me and guide my hand. Maybe it needs some of that. Haha, that kind of helps. Ah. Don't know if that's accurate, but I do like it. That's cool. Kind of looks perfect with the line. I'm going to stop. It does look cool. That was my thinking, is sometimes the right thing is in the right place, but it's missing the other thing that it needs in order to justify. Or it's like, it's realistic as long as these other things are realistic too. And if it's not realistic, then these other... That's a lot about this process where, yeah, thank you. Here, let's save our work, right? I did something and it doesn't suck. Quickly, save. Yeah, this thing is looking cool. Okay, let's add a little... bit of... Same sort of highlights here on these. I kind of gave him little horns. Now, they're going to be the same color as this highlight, so we can just color pick. Maybe just a little bit here. Funny how those little tiny things can make such a difference. Okay, so that's all looking cool. Let's look at this. Look how cool this is. Not bad, homies. Okay, now we just got to make everything else look that good. Ooh, I did promise before things get on too far. I just want to quickly steal the color. I'm going to get in here and steal this color. And apply it over here. Okay. Something about highlights are so fascinating to me. It's probably just a side effect of living in LA, but there's a trillion cars here. And like when I'd be, let's say on a rare event that it rained in Los Angeles, because it does rain every once in a while. Everybody's cars are a little shinier than usual. And I look across I'm driving and I'm looking down the street and I see that all the way stretching to the horizon, there are cars going in whatever direction. The sun is brightly shining on all of them. And I can see highlights on cars that are miles away. On some of these cars, the entire car is like a highlight. The power of a highlight to unify, because the highlight occurs at a place that is unique to the subject, because it's the form, and the light source, which is describing the form, and the camera, or our eyeball. It's like these 3 points of unification. It's unique to the viewer's perspective because it's like, unlike if it's diffused lighting and there's no highlights, for instance. Like if there are no highlights, then there's no. Then the light is uniform even if you walk all the way around the subject. But if there are highlights, then as you look at the subject, you walk around it, you'll see the highlights moving all over the place. The little tiny highlighted reflections. It's sort of like this dynamic lighting experience. And it's like personalized to your position, even relative to everything else being fixed. It's this fascinating thing. And like if I saw a shiny car, I could go up to it and the highlights are tiny, tiny, tiny highlights. Like, especially if the paint job is nice, super tiny, tiny refined highlights all over the cars, like highlights, highlights, highlights. If I go 100 meters from the car, I can still see the highlights, except instead of small, they're big. There's fewer of them, but the ones that I see are much bigger than I saw when I was close up to it, relative to the subject. And then if I'm a mile away from the car, I can still see the car's highlights, but there's like 1 or 2, But in relation to the size of the car, they're gigantic. It's like the size of the car. It's like crazy. Yeah, once my dog was eclipsed by the city lights. That's interesting. Did you get a picture? I'm curious how that might look. Okay, so I did that little bit of highlight stuff over there. What else was I gonna do? Still plenty to do. It's just, what do we want to do now? Let's try that. Let's try. Oh, you can see he had this yellow light rim all around him. It was really interesting. Well, let's try a little bit of that here. I think we can possibly. Let's save. We'll save a new version of this file. And this will probably be embarrassing because I just don't have a lot of good experience with it. But I want to try and do some... Oh. Before we do any of that, let's get some of that lighting stuff happening here on the foreground legs. Not tons and tons and tons, but some. Okay. So this stuff, I mean, it's really going to help to separate out the space too. Maybe with some fall off. So let's knock everything down just a little bit. Just a little bit. I think it would get a little blocked there. Still want to sort of be in the world of truth. Yes, make a suggestion. Suggest. And if I don't like it, you're banned. Anybody can make suggestions. The fur motif you are sort of talking about is a element I want to try and bring in. It would be very glowy. I'll try some of that. Do I dare try and do some... What happens? If I just really try to pump up. How can I do this non-destructively? On a new layer. Brighter and redder. Oh, look at this. Okay, let's see here. Thanks. I think the sand dunes might have a bit of a diffused glow of golden or amber hue in the area closer to the light, and the pits and valleys would have deeper and diffused shadows. I think looks reflect a bit, be more saturated green on closer areas, as well as this blonde hair might have a little bit more of a golden touch. Even softened rim light on it might work. It might have a deeper shadow closer to the left of the sand dunes as well. You are not wrong on, I think, probably everything you said. And I should caveat, I might have got there eventually with all that stuff. Yeah, the... Whoa. Yo, remind me later. I'm certainly not being like, well, guys, we're done. You know, let's pack it in. I think I will, however, take some of your advice. The subsurface scattering, I think, is an interesting... I mean, what if I cheated it really quick? Just to... Will this work if I just cheat it? What happens if I do that? Does this work? Does this do anything? In some instances, this might have a interesting effect. Here, before I go too far and I can't undo it, let me undo all this shit. Okay. The subsurface scattering, if we get to it, if we decide it's applicable, can be done later. Let's shift it up. I actually think you are correct in some of what you were saying. But yeah, I think it's also important to sort of note that there isn't a I'd say I'm like halfway done, not like 90% done with this image. So there's plenty left to do, even if I didn't pull the crowd on what should we do next. But let's work on the sand dunes, because I definitely feel like that is gonna be helpful for us to like feel where the environment is feeling more or less realistic. Okay. But ultimately, Scroll Reaper, I want to do what I can to reserve applying like extra shadows to areas that might still yet have light applied to them. I want to make sure that I'm done applying all the light before I go. You may recall, like, I spent a lot of time making ambient occlusion shadows for all these images, and then ultimately realizing that that was not the right thing to do, and that it makes sense to apply occlusion shadows after all of the light has been applied. After all the lighting that I want to do in a scene has already been done, then it makes sense to maybe go in and darken areas that need to be darker after that. So those kinds of shadows, like, oh, well, it needs to be darker here. Like, I agree it needs to be darker there compositionally. Like, it needs to be. And it makes sense visually as well. But that'll be among, like, the last things. So. But everything you're saying is good, I think. You also may be more sensitive to, like, color mistakes that I might be making, just in general. I just want to say that I don't have great color discernment with a lot of like red and green tones. So like blonde hair, for instance, is not like obviously I can see blonde hair, but there might be, you might be like, man, Max is not doing a very good job on that blonde hair. I kind of have him having an auburn type of hair, like more like the color of freshly baked bread, you know, not exactly blonde. But totally, there's always room for comments and criticisms. Okay, sand. And yeah, so like sand is definitely very, it's got this weird materiality. Like it can be super reflective. It's got its own color issues. Like what is sand? It's like tiny specks of rocks that are all the colors of the rainbow. You know, it's sort of weird. So anyway, that all is to say, I'm probably going to mess all this up. Okay, so let's get much brighter. And then much more orangey yellow. Now that I'm thinking about this, the yeah, I should have been even more heavy-handed with my red color. Like that feels good. It's not a bad color. But Scroll Reaper, just like in terms of like the story I'm trying to tell, the Link will essentially be almost 100% in the shadow, even if it looks like here and here, like it would catch some the most I'll probably do, if anything, is I mean, it's not even just going to be that. Like behind Link, well, let me do some of this. Let me try to imagine Link is not only hiding in the shadow, but he's also hiding in like this dust cloud that has been kicked up by the feet of the Lanmola, which is a subtle thing, but it's also going to serve to separate the space and occlude the light. And so there's just, you'll have to take it on faith that for reasons of like keeping their spaces separate, I really don't want to get too much brightness and light from the fire on Link. And if I can get away with putting like none, basically, I'll try and do that. But I definitely want it to feel like the sand is like that. This is having like a cool effect. Oh, that's so funny. I have it set to color dodge. Ah. I was like, why does it look so good? Yeah, it's like probably way oversaturated. And it is. There you go. God. Made a boo-boo. I mean, it looks good, but it's like, that's not the way. Let's try. Let's go back and I'll keep the form, but I'll fill it in with the color the way I'd meant to do it. Because just because something looks good, like, I don't want it to be, and I had this discussion earlier in the stream where it's like, once things, like, obviously colors can look amazing, like if we pump them full of contrast, but that's like, sets us down a slippery slope where we can run out of colors that we need by getting too enthusiastic about that. Okay. No. God darn it. I'll just have to... There we go. Yes, this is not as exciting as the colors I was just using, but but this is in the range that I want. Definitely can get brighter. And then sand can definitely have highlights, I think, right? Right. Oh, rocks and pebbles are shimmering. Nothing that I'm gonna go too nuts over, but I definitely... It is interesting, like if you... Like if you look here at the sliders, I'm running out of the red brightness that I can bring to the sand color. It's like reaching a wall. Wonder if it can be... So that's helpful. It's a funny little grit. This looks a little gross for right now, but it may not look gross if I ultimately take a blur tool to it. Just sort of an experiment, because I know I have a blur tool somewhere. Ugh. Well, don't know if I regret it, but don't know if I love it. Well, we'll paint over it. I don't mind it. It's just not really in the aesthetic. I'm certainly not used to that tool. Definitely throwing off my scale. All right, well, what not to do. Yeah, let's see here. What could or should happen? Well, what was your... Let's see here. Sand dunes might have a bit of diffused glow of golden or amber hued in the areas that... Amber hued on the closer areas to the light. Let's apply some of that. Hmm. Okay. Yeah. I'm not I'm just trying to think here. Maybe with a soft brush, fading it into burnt sienna and then into the muted colors would help the balance. Yeah, it was giving it some warmth. Something I'm trying to avoid doing is having, because I do rely too much like with like cheap hacks, and no, it's not like it's cheap or whatever, but like using like colorize tools or you know, tools that essentially like add saturation or add contrast until like the very end. It's like I don't want to force it to get overstated a little bit. Let me but let's mess around a little bit. Why not? You know. You know, if we do something like that. You know, but what I don't want is for the influence of the fire to be so overstated that we then run into let's do a little bit of what you're talking about, because I agree it's sort of like, ooh, now just add some highlights to that and we're there. That's kind of a cool look, actually. So let's split the difference a little bit. So I want Link firmly in the shadow. What's the smallest application I can give this? 3%. That looks okay up there. The other shadow you chose was closer. This is taking away the suspension of... No, I appreciate the, like, even if, like I'm like, well, I can't do what you're asking or whatever, you know, that's not a, I think the spirit of what you're talking about is actually quite right. Let's mess around with some stuff, though, because I wonder, one thing that I'm wondering is if I just went too bright with the sand highlight itself. We have all this information we can play with. You know, so this was before. This is just set to multiply. What about overlay? Yeah, I think just playing around with some of that a little bit more. It's funny, but it's like sometimes in order to make stuff, I'm sure you know, you need it. I need this to be brighter. Well, then other things have to get darker. It's just true, you know? Don't want to lose too much of Link's silhouette. But like, we're on the path to, these highlights are a bit too bright. Maybe a rim light or blur on them can help. Come over, spit in my soup, and walk away. Yeah, it's all good. Well, we don't have to... the changes can be made fairly painlessly. I don't know. I think I preferred the overlay a little bit. No, that is too bright. That's funny. Hey, Uchi. Scroll Reaper is just messing everything up. Just messing it all up. It's all about love. I'm doing good. How about you? What do you think so far? Good, good, good. Okay. Scroll Reaper. Take this with all the humility that I would have for myself. But whereas I think you were right with your instincts with those suggestions. Let me go back to I'm gonna delete what we did. I'm gonna go back and do a little bit more of the process as according to the process. Yeah, take it with a grain of salt. Your stuff was right, but it may be like, let's use those sorts of like compositional tweaks, because that's ultimately it's kind of like a compositional tweak. I want to like what I'm trying to do right now is add the information we need. Yeah, take it with a grain of sand. Look at all the sand. Isn't that enough sand for you? We can. I have a feeling that a lot of stuff that you were like sort of thinking needed to be added will sort of like come out in the finished product as we get to it, if we just sort of more or less adhere to the process. Because some things might be jumping out at you right now, but only because like things aren't, like, for instance, one thing that's bugging the shit out of me that I haven't changed it yet is the prevalence of like this crazy piece of like skull or skeleton or deceased warrior debris that's in the dune that's like touching Link's arm. Now that's there because I felt it needed something to overlap, and it's really fairly arbitrary, but it's too much contrast there for my taste. Now I haven't done anything about it now because I know that I'm going to put a cloud of dust behind Link that will more or less obscure that. And what is broadly stated now will simply be a whisper, you know, further along in the process if I just stick to it. So, you know, but here's the good news is that because I'm doing everything the right way, quote unquote, like this isn't like all one of those paintings that's all in one layer, and in order to change something small, you can't, you know. This is like, hey Max, can you know, paint something here in the background and make that look cool? It's like, yes, I can, because it's all on separate layers and it's easy. It's easy to make changes that way. It's sort of, you know, this is good practice for process as far as like doing things in a professional setting where it's like, it's not just what, you know, we've got the maximum acceptable amount of latitude to make changes as we go, but that doesn't mean like we... Yeah, exactly. What you were talking about is sort of like making changes like to a compositional thumb, and like to you it's like right there anyway. It's like, you know, but there is a guiding map in my brain that can see the effects of the different things. The only really big thing I'm curious about whether or not I should try is the subsurface scattering, and I actually just don't think it needs it. So I think what I want to try and do is get into some of the atmospheric and like particle effects now. And we've got like 10 minutes. Let me sort of demo some of this stuff. I'm gonna try and introduce some of what I'm talking about, where we get believe it or not, my family is still asleep, despite it being 7 a.m. Oh, I hear voices now. Well, let me tease a little bit of stuff, because this is like... because it's important. And Uchi's here, so I want to do something cool. We need to pick up one of my go-to brushes, which is somewhere. There we go. Oh, this is all jacked up right now. Shit. Is this it? Oh. The application of this brush is weird sometimes. So I may have to demonstrate it on a different day. But essentially the nothing is good, but this is not the right effect, but the but something similar to this, where we have a sense of the particles of sand getting skidded up. This sculpt face is killing me, trying to make somewhat of a snarling face. It's a harpy who's just had her share of food, and it's just kind of like, I just ate a ton of fresh meat face, and I can see another kind of food in the distance. While also keeping her looking beautiful. That sounds challenging. I'm not a sculpting genius, but if you feel like sharing, you certainly can. Or get farther on it. Because I'm about to stop the stream. Get off to start my day. I essentially want it to look like these... Like this, I want this thing to look like it's fast moving. The what? Oh God! Go. Like the I want a sense of speed coming off of this thing, and so I'm also even going to do a little motion blur effect on the legs. Here's a brush called the air pencil, which is good at making atmosphere. Link. Do you have any reference for the centipede? So, no, I did not. That's not 100% true. I did have this reference. If I can find it. Here we go. This is the fun one. Let's see here. This is my reference. So this scene, this is I sketched this out so long ago that you guys might not even be aware, but the scene that I'm drawing is this scene. This is the scene. It was just, I was trying to think, I'm like, how can I take original Zelda art and make it cinematic? That was the original idea behind this first sketch, was like, what can I do to make it look more cinematic? And I'm like, okay, well, here's like a crazy crazy weird cartoony Zelda guy versus, you know, Link. Yeah, so this is well, but like these original drawings are amazing, you know, so it's really like I'm not joking when I'm like this is inspiring to me, but it's also sort of like, this is not a cinematic aesthetic that like could work in a movie. Like, what could, you know? So with no shade on the original, like there are some bad original Zelda drawings, and this isn't one of them. Like I'm super impressed by this rock, for instance. You know, I'm sorry, pardon the low resolution of the image. It's just what I was able to pull offline really quick. But the Uchi, the original process of like devising how the centipede, it's known as the Lanmola, how the Lanmola like works, like where the legs go and the segmentation and all that stuff. If I'm not mistaken, I did a little bit of reference on the legs, but as far as like the anatomy of the body and like really the look of it, it's just all up here. Just I let the composition dictate where things needed to be, and then just listen to that. So that was the process with that. And that's all live streamed and in the VODs if you ever want to check it out. It's probably several months back, but it is there. Yeah, my original design for the legs was, they were coming out looking like horse hooves. And that had a lot to do with the fact that I was just finishing up sketching the one where they were on the horse that was running away from the Octorok. So I just finished sketching that horse, and so I had all the horse stuff knowledge stuck in my brain. And so then when I was sketching all these legs, I was sketching them as horse hoofs, which wasn't appropriate. So then I did this on stream. I was like, I found a picture that I liked that sort of represented what the insect legs could actually look like, that was referenced, a little more grounded in reality, and you'll see that influence here. But that's in the record. It's in the historical record. All right, let's click on these great links that Scroll Reaper has posted. Here's the original. Looking back, it's not bad, just not loving it. Let's click here. Like to live dangerously. Okay, so this looks really cool. She kind of has that, she's giving that battle angel Alita, is that the, she kind of has the like oversized eyes that gives that battle angel look. But this is cool. I like the hybrid, it looks like feathery hair, feathery modeled hair. And of course she's devouring someone. Now I'm redoing the face completely. She's Uncanny Valley now. Okay, let's click here. This isn't that bad, actually. Yeah, don't be too hard on yourself. This is this looks well on its way. Trying old school Michelangelo sculpts, that angelic feel. Yeah. I have no idea how to emulate Michelangelo, but some of this good stuff, like Like I like your modeling of the like cheekbones and like it feels like there's like, what's it called, like buccal fat or something like that. The you've achieved the hard to thread needle of looking innocent and beautiful, but also extremely creepy and deadly. So don't question yourself too much on this path. But I understand the it's difficult because you're challenging yourself. That's the okay, cool. So it's like a clay that you can like blend in those edges. But that's really cool that you do it that way. Look more like the original image. Weirdly, stuff like that I find to be interesting. Like they could be almost like pleats of feathers. Don't listen to me though. I'm just screwing around. But my imagination like runs with stuff. Okay. So you can see some of these things happening that are blending out some of this stuff. Don't take it like seriously. I don't know anything about 3D sculpting. So this is sort of like a jumping ahead preview. Now I'm eventually just going to turn these layers off because I think we are getting to the point where like I actually do want to do like more finishing details, like adding in a bit of the like I want there to be like gross hairs on the Lanmola's legs that we can see and articulate. I do want there to be more detail on Link, come back. I really do want to make Link look a little bit more amazing. And add other little bits of finishing details, but I think we're in that zone. But I wanted to add this sort of like atmospheric sense so that the audience at home right now can see where the intent is with some of the composition. And and I'll give it like all that obnoxious like vignetting or whatever, like that concept art look, when in doubt, just throw a bunch of black around it, right? But tell me it doesn't look good, So we'll get there. Let me label that. Turn that off. But we'll play with it in amounts that are appropriate. But yeah, I want to get in there and add more detail to, and occlusion shadows where they belong now. Interestingly, I like the sand. Like the sand isn't perfect, but I like what we did today. Like I feel like, despite all the like, whatever the. I mean, the sand does need to get tweaked one way or another, but I'll do that with like Photoshop sliders and stuff like that. One last thing I want to do is, this is such a cheat, but I'm not above using like the glow tool. The vignette, yeah, it really does. It's like all of a sudden this is like concept art. But I want a strong sense of atmosphere that is separating the spaces. And something that feels like this. Do you guys kind of get what I'm putting down here? Like something that feels like the that really pushes the distance between Link and the Lanmola. You smell what I'm stepping on. That's the dank shit right there. This is important, I think, to really sell the concept of like the Lanmola is searching for Link, but actually doesn't see him. Whereas I think if you turn all that stuff off, the space is compressed again, and it looks like they could be like right next to each other, or even facing each other. And I definitely don't want there to be like a lot of confusion about that. This is sort of a sloppy application of it. I'll have to double check and make sure all that is right, but but like if you shrink it down, you can really see. Yeah, and so that's a little bit of like you guys can't see it necessarily. I mean, maybe you can imagine it with me, but like you aren't necessarily anticipating exactly where I'm going to go with some of this stuff until I actually do it. And that's, it's like I held it all in suspense. It was like, oh, well, how's it going to make that look good or whatever? But like, I'm pretty good with some of these, like, right. Yeah. I don't want there to be any doubt that like Link is in a completely different space away from his head, right? And so we can do that with, a little bit of this sort of atmospheric perspective that is really only affecting the Lanmola. And I'm not sure how far, I'll redo all this stuff, obviously, but the, definitely like hear the sand. And so by like keeping the sand that's near Link darker, and the sand that is nearer to the Lanmola brighter, sort of being, I can hear my whole family is up right now making a ruckus. But there's no school today, and my wife has the day off, so I'm going to come on, I just want this to get brighter. There's no way for it to be brighter. Impossible. Anyway, the more shadow behind Link. Do you kind of see what I'm doing? Like this stuff really helps separate their spaces. Where now it's actually kind of getting to be a little bit more believable that Link and the Lanmola are separate. Now something that's jumping out is the legs over here have a lot of contrast, and luckily I have those layers very well separated. Here, let me save my work. We're overdue for a system crash. And I don't know if like the like some of the notes that you had earlier might still apply, but I think actually probably some of the stuff that I'm doing is making those things that maybe were noticeable to you earlier less noticeable. So now your eye is like focused exactly where I want it to be, getting the exact impression that this is a pitched battle to the death, but where one is disadvantaged versus the other, but only in one certain way, and then the tides are flipped on the other. Okay, let's see here. Lanmola. Just a little bit of atmosphere. Did that do anything? Oh. Oh, that's funny. I get a sense of clouds, patches of puffs of dust. You know, this thing means business. Anyway, looking cool. And then it's like, this looks cool. And then even when we're done, then we're gonna take it into Photoshop. We'll play with all the color sliders. There's tons of shit left to get done. We'll play with the exposure, give it all those little doodles. But, you know, you can see how much vignetting and the atmospherics they make such a difference. So the difference that makes. You know. So next time I want to focus on some like really granular details, like just make sure that, you know, if Link needs a scrape on his cheek, we can get that in now. If we want some nicks and cuts on his clothes, on his sword, we can add those in. Like even for this, I don't want that affecting Link. Turn that off. Turn that off. Like, look how much more separate. Like maybe that went too far, but look how much more separated they are now. Huge difference. It's like really more believable now in the sense of separation in the space. Okay, 1 minute, boo. All right, time's up. I gotta go. I gotta go be a dad. Real life duties. Okay, let's do our thumbnail. First off, let's look at this thing looking badass. GG. That's what my brother says. Yeah. This looks cool. Okay. This one's for the thumbnail. Let's see here. A little funny, but I'll just make a stupid face like or you know, and huh? All the stupid faces that people reacting to their own work. That's the best one. It's cringe, but I don't, you know, it's like, unless I over leverage all that stupid shit, you know, I'll never make a dent in the void, and Nintendo will never see. They'll never know. So I have to do cringe shit like that, I think. Okay, I really do gotta go. Thank you so much, everyone, and I will probably see you tomorrow morning. All right, adios. Yeah, I gotta do the thing. It's what's hard is that I work in marketing. Like I literally like deal with like advertising shit all the time, and it's like, do I really want to do the call to action stuff? It's like I get enough of that in my day job. Now I have to do it now, but let's see. I'll ease into that as a habit, slowly but surely, so that it doesn't feel like it's too much all at once. It'll be okay. All right, you guys get it. All right, see you tomorrow, hopefully. All right. Otherwise, have a great Friday. Bye-bye.